Here we go then, it's day 3 on redeveloping the fishing lake with the goat island in the middle, and it's a big day because we've come across quite a lot of problems. Let me just put the crabs in the lake first. These are a little bit too big for Toon to make salt crab. Not yet, Blackie, you can come out later. Okay, so the water level has dropped another 2 inches since yesterday. Casting your mind back, day before, Macroman took out Macroman Point, dug a big hole, and then on the day 2 he released the dam, filled that up, and I would say it dropped about 1.5 to 2 inches. Today it's done the same again, but it hasn't dropped enough. That's the problem. There's not enough shelf on the island that's exposed for him to take out. The other problem we've got is the far end of the island is not too bad for him to work on. There's quite a lot of rock in the soil, a lot of stone, but this end, it is so soft. And he's saying as he's getting nearer and nearer to this end of the island, he's having to pack more and more soil underneath his tracks because he's just sinking down, and he said it's taking so much longer than it would do normally. So that's a real bummer. On the upside is it's still flipping fast. So let's have a little walk around from the outside and then we'll jump onto Goat Island. So at the moment he's at the back of the goat house, so I would say he's halfway. Oh, yesterday he did 8 hours. The day before he did 7 hours. Well, to be fair, he's done 7.5 and 8.5, but what he normally does is just keep it under the half-hour mark, and then he rounds it down to the nearest hour. So that's very kind of him. And then every 10 hours, generally speaking, we get an hour knocked off by the boss. But it's the boss's son now. Unfortunately, the big boss of the digger company, he passed away. His wife's still at the helm, so to speak, but it's her son that's sort of like dealing with customers now. So hopefully he'll carry on the tradition of knocking a few hours off here and there. Price per hour is the same as it's always been, 1,600. Well, say always. For the big digger, which is what Macro Man is using today, as always, that used to be 1,700, but you know, we've had a fair bit of work done. We just automatically go into 1,600 now. It would be done a lot quicker if we could have had the trucks on the island, but if an excavator sinks, flipping out, truck's got no chance, certainly when it's loaded up with wet soil as well. So, well, wet clay. Toon just gave him a ring from the house and said, can you give me a ring when you're just about to release the water, because Lee wants to record it again. And he said, it just gave way, he didn't actually take it out. And this is what we were chatting with him about this morning. It's just so soft. Certainly as you get towards the edge of the island, you can see he's actually having to dig out the bit that was remaining now. You know, where he is now was supposed to be out before he released the water. He can't do it, so he's having to spoon it out underwater, which isn't great. We've seen a few fish jump in when he does that. Thankfully he hasn't harpooned any with the bucket, but don't mind it being uneven underneath the water surface. I don't like these places where, you know, it's just all uniform under the water and, you know, there's no features for the fish. I like it up and down. I like to plumb around and find the features underwater. Where he is now, this was an old dam across here, temporary dam. While he was excavating down there, we dropped the water there, and then when he went there, we dropped the water from there into there. And when he took it out, we got him to not take all of it out. We left it sort of like raised about 1.5 foot off the bottom. So that's sort of like a hidden causeway right down the bottom there. Yeah, that's just about deep enough. But behind behind where he's digging, it was going down 3.5 meters. You know, we wanted to drop the level of the water as much as possible. So that's a bit of a bugger. Bless him, he did say to us this morning, he said, look, let's have a good go at it today. We'll try and drop the level again, see if it's enough. If not, he said, really seriously consider about putting it on hold. I mean, I'm fine with what he's doing at the moment, but it's getting slower because it's getting softer. Let's get on the island and I'll show you what it's on about. This lot are ready to come out, ready to go in the jungle round the back. A little bit later, guys. We let them out for the last hour and a half, 2 hours of sunlight. Makes it easier to get them back in. They're still in the house, the goat house next to our house. Births are imminent, aren't they, ladies? Him just trying to get on here, ridiculous. You see how lovely and clear the water is. That was just where he put his bucket in there to try and pull himself out. Because this is the lowest part of the island, it was the last section that the water left it, so it's been underwater longer than anywhere else. Well, in fact, the far end of the island didn't flood. It was close to it, but it didn't flood at all. So where you can see the soil mounded up now, the water came to about there. But what he's saying is for him to take out the shelf, yeah, ideally it should have dropped more. Well, we're hoping it would drop more. But for him to take this out, he's then got to move soil to the edge of the existing shelf and then take out the shelf. But what he's saying is this is too soft here to get the purchase on there, so he'd have to pack it all here with soil, create a dam, dig out, take the dam out, and it's just not cost effective. I know it looks a mess, don't fret, it'll all look pretty at the end. It's always like this. The reason we're not got a tractor to help him is because he's putting soil where he needs to drive next. And this is the problem, moving soil twice. I'm gonna have a walk round the other side and you can see the progress are much better. To me, I mean, it looks so fast, but when you're down here at ground level and you see the repetitive movements that he's got to do, then you can see, yeah, it's taking at least twice as long as it should do. If it wasn't so soft, this end of the island, I'd probably be inclined to say just keep going, mate. You know, it's fast enough, you do what you can. But if it's too soft anyway and he can't do it, we're gonna have to call a halt on it. He reckons at the current level about another 1 to 2 months for him to be able to get on here and do it properly. When I say that, full speed, he's doing a proper job. It's just taking a lot longer. I think maybe what's quite misleading about the lake is it doesn't look that big in one respect, because it looks like more like a river or a canal. It's deceptive how big it is. It's a huge body of water. On top of that, like the area that we call the glory hole, he reckons that's just over 6 meters deep, you know, so it's not like some of these places that are 2 or 3 meters deep. You know, the average depth is 4.5 meters. If I had to guesstimate from here to Poacher's Nook, I'd say 300 meters. You picture now all this outer shelf gone, then the shelf on the outer road gone. It didn't look like a canal now. Quite frustrating, but you know, it's such a huge task that we've undertaken. You know, you're bound to come up against problems, as we always have when we've had these sorts of projects ongoing here on the farm. What he will be doing after a few days of it drying, he will then be driving on the top of here and just balancing it more. Just tidying up smoothing the corners off. There's a little bit of a jetty bit sticking out there, that'll be taken out, and just sculpture all the soil. I reckon in the last 2 days it's dropped a good foot already. It looks high now, but flipping out, it's dropping quick. Thankfully it's not dropping back into the lake, it's just the air's being pushed out, I imagine. This will be a lovely little bay to fish from, so I'm thinking maybe put a swim here once the entrance to there is rounded off both sides. That's a fair old chuck into there. Leading on from there, we've got the rejigged macroman point. Again, that's going to be nicely balanced off and a proper designated swim created in there. All planted up, obviously. Poacher's nook in the corner over here. A lot of the shelf is exposed along here now. A little bit of scum on the surface here. There's quite a stiff breeze blowing into this corner. Tends to bring a lot of the fry, and then other predatory fish come with it. Depending on what species it is, sometimes you get the parent fish coming in with a fry, taking care of them. But yeah, I think this Poacher's Nook's going to be a cracking swim. So we're going to have a swim built into the side of here, and nice stepped access down. It will be almost plumb opposite Macroman Point. As I said, we're not expecting loads and loads of anglers to be coming here at the same time. The greatest danger is me setting up down here, baiting up, catching plenty of fish, and then Toon setting up at Macroman Point and crossing straight over into my swim. She got no shame when it comes to poaching people's swims if they're catching more fish than she is. This is nice. Good for your hay fever. It's good to sow your seed, isn't it? What we don't want to be doing is putting a swim facing this way. So it's late afternoon now, and that sun flipping out, that's like the strongest part of the day for the sun. So we're going to try our best not to have anything facing that way. The dyer, named after Dyer Straits, that's open right out now. But you can see if we don't take the outer shelf out, we're going to lose that much. If we can get it down about 1.5 meters, that would be just spot on then at the height of a drought season, unless it's a prolonged 6-month one like we did a few years ago. You know, we'll always have at least sort of like 1 foot or 2 of water there. And even if it does dry out, it's not an issue then, because everything seems to, the seeds seem to, well, you can see all the stuff that's gone to seed. Everything just springs into life soon as you get some exposed wet soil around the lake. And then as soon as it starts flooding again, the fish are in there feeding the faces on all the detritus, all the little roots, bugs, that sort of thing, and then it's a good little spawning area. So we don't want to make it deep anyway around the edge, but it is definitely too high at the minute. We have got a couple of other little jobs for Macroman to do while he's here. So if we do have to call a halt on the island, or maybe leave it another day to let all the soil dry on here before he goes and decorate it for us and make everything smooth, yeah, then we can keep him busy for a day elsewhere on the farm. I love watching the digger in action. It's brilliant, but I really don't like digging under the water line. Not so much for the fish's safety, it's just not efficient working, but unavoidable now for this bit. This area, snakeheady corner, I want to leave that height there. So it is quite narrow here. This bit on this point here, the shelf needs to come out here, but so many snakehead are in there. I really want to leave that, but where the goats are walking along the back of the house there, we want to raise that up about 2 foot. So that's going to be quite tricky. He's somehow got to get the soil there from here all the way along there, and then from there as well. We do need it building up around the outside toilet. We're going to try and keep this island's separate from everything else, so that's all got to be built up. But again, I think it's just way too soft. It's too dangerous. What a picture, eh? When I was editing day one, you know, and it was brilliant blue sky, and with cobbler's coloration as well. Oh, it's just brilliant on the screen. Special times, even though we've got a few, you know, problems with it, still enjoying it. You can see how high he is here now. That's the finished height that we would like leading off the island. That road, we would like it that high, and then a year's time it'll probably be half the height. I remember when we had the first dig here and people were like, bloody hell, look at all that soil, what are you going to do with it? And we did say at the time, we don't think we've got enough, and Macroman even said, look, you need to leave a shelf around the edge and make sure that the middle bit's high enough. And he was right. You know, it would have just been high enough if the dam hadn't broke. He said all the Mekongs were up on the surface earlier this morning. Soon said, are you sure they weren't Sawai? He goes, I know what Mekongs look like. But the water's not aqua colour now, is it? It's like a gopping cup of tea. Hey, look at this! Look at this for a scenic shot. Look at that! Dry season, I know it can look a little bit barren around here until we get some trees in. But I think the beauty of it is when you're actually in here fishing, you're down, you're sat, you know, sort of like down in the lake, and you can see all the trees and vegetation that's above the bank. So as long as we've got tall grasses around here, I know they won't be here all year, and then a few trees, but you get sort of like layers from the bigger trees that are in the distance. So I think it looks really good, and it's going to look a lot better. We're pretty much scuppered with the goats. You know, they've rubbed themselves up against trees, young trees. You know, they take bark off trees, and they use the side, I'll show you over here, as sort of like a scratching slide feature. So anywhere where they earmark for that, you can forget it. Nothing will grow there. So they just slide their stomachs down there. They're quite good. They put the brakes on before they get the hooves wet. There's no way we're going to be setting up individual fencing around every single tree or bush that we put in. It's just, we need so many to go around the lake. So I think we'll get a few of these trees and we'll put them in as a trial, and if they're goat resistant then we'll go for it. So they haven't bothered with the one at the front of the house, but then again, when they're let out the front of the house, there's loads of other nice things that are easier to eat for them to nosh on. So yeah, we need to put them where they are for a longer period of time, and just make sure that, you know, we're not going to be wasting our money on a load of trees and a load of time putting them all in. So you're now up to date as far as day 3 goes and the current situation, what we're up against. I think we'll be having a chat with him afterwards, and we'll get him here tomorrow anyway. If we don't get him to do anything else on there, then we'll be doing things like the apple snail enclosure area, and we've got another little bit which we need to talk to him about. As always, take care. Thanks very much for you guys that bought us a few coffees recently from part 1 in the series. Much appreciated. And if you've got any ideas for naming these swims, let us know. Mr. Crabtree's Corner or something like that. I quite like one with the name Crabtree in it. I've got a spare half an hour before I need to go and clean the goat house out. So I've got some fish pellets soaking in oil, mixed up a little bit of ground bait. Let's see if I can grab a couple of fish for tea.